Welcome, everybody, and happy Monday. Today is August 17th, 2020. I hope you are all ready for a fantastic beginning of your week. We're going to go ahead and get started with today's Tim at 10. So it's the beginning of the school year, and not only is it the beginning of the school year, but we have a lot of children that are returning to our programs after being home with mom and dad, or grandma and grandpa, or guardian, or whomever they've been at home with for a while. And so, a lot of kids have probably been doing whatever they want to do for a while now. So I thought I would go ahead and do a webinar on working with picky eaters, because I'm sure that most of us have a typical 5-week rotating menu that we do at our schools. But probably for the last 5 or 6 months, our kids have been eating a lot of chicken nuggets and hot dogs and goldfish, and probably not the healthiest of choices. So, returning back to our programs and eating the menus that we serve, it might be a little difficult for some of our kids. So, I thought this would be a good topic to help us out here at the beginning of the school year. Now, we've all been through this. How many of you have had that parent that when you first enroll the child, they look at your menu and they go, oh, well, my child will only eat peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Or, oh, I just want to warn you right now that Michael won't eat anything green just because of the color. He doesn't like that color green. Or, bananas used to be Matt's favorite food, but now he won't even touch them. And they want to start dictating what their child will and will not eat before they even give it a try. So, we hear that, upon enrollment. So when we're working with our children, our children may only eat certain types of food, or they may refuse to eat foods based on certain colors or textures. He or she may also play at the table and not want to eat at all. It's a playtime right there. Don't put a lot of focus on, the child that is that picky eater and those picky eater behaviors. I think that as a classroom teacher and even as parents, we put too much focus on these picky eaters right there. Why the child is or is not eating what they're eating. All right. Bottom line is that picky eaters is common for most children up until the age of 5. All children are going to have certain foods that, whether it's the color or the texture or the taste, they just don't like it. All right. A lot of what we're going to talk about today, and when you think about why doesn't the child, eat the fruit or the vegetable because of the texture, a lot of it has to do with adult influence, or siblings or other children and their influence. A lot of the picky eating habits come from learned behavior and not necessarily what that particular child, is wanting to do right there. All right. As this is where you're going to want to work with your mom and dad, work with your guardian and your grandparent. As long as the child is eating enough to stay healthy, as long as their weight is within the margin that the child's healthcare professional is happy with, they're going to be just fine. Now, if they're not eating enough, if they're not getting enough nutrients, that's when you do want to work with the child's family and the healthcare professional. And they may, make some other recommendations with some protein drinks or those type of things. But, definitely we want to keep an open communication with the child's family. But let's talk about how to cope with some picky eatings, all right? Now, picky eaters normally are temporary. That's the one thing that you want to know, and especially when you're working with your families, picky eating is temporary. They most likely will get past whatever the issue is, especially once they see their peers and once they see you eating whatever the food is that they're being picky about. My first big tip to you when working with picky eaters is don't make a big deal out of it. All right, don't make a big deal out of it. The more you make a big deal, the longer the picky eater is going to have the issue. All right, and making a big deal out of a food that they're refusing to eat or whatever, it could, it's almost borderline trauma for some children right there, especially if they're forced to eat something that they're having an issue with. So let's talk about a couple of tips that you can do right there in your classroom that will help children in a positive way to try out new foods and get familiar with the texture, get familiar with the taste, and let's see how we can help them. And again, remember, one of the biggest reasons why we have children who are picky eaters is because of the influence from the adult or the older sibling that they've got around them. So if mom or dad or older brother, they don't like a red onion, all right, and they make negative comments about the red onion, then the child is most likely not going to like the red onion either. So, this is one of the reasons why I am such a ginormous advocate for family style meal service in the classroom. Now, I understand right now, due to COVID and the pandemic and a lot of our regulations that we've got, it has been recommended that we not practice family style meal service for the time being, and I understand the reason why. But as soon as we are done with this pandemic, hey everybody, sorry about that. The internet gods must not be happy with our topic today. So we are back online now. My internet just completely just went away. It's not that it froze, it just completely went away. So thank goodness we have hotspots on our phones and we can reconnect with a hotspot. So sorry about that. It happens. That's the world we're living in these days. All right, so we're getting going again on working with our children in a positive way, whenever you've got picky eaters right there. So getting back into it, and again, I see everyone hopping back on Facebook Live. Again, sorry for that little internet hiccup, but we're back on live now. All right, so when you've got children that are having some picky eaters, before your cook begins to prepare the food in your program, and I'm mainly going to be speaking today about those of you that prepare food and serve food in your program. Now, if you're a program that mom and dad sends in food, this is a totally different conversation for you when mom and dad is preparing the food and sending it into your program. Let me just kind of make that clear that we're going to be talking today about those of you that are preparing food in your program and you've got a lot of this flexibility. So before your cook or your chef starts preparing the food in your program, have them bring some of the ingredients into the classroom so that while the child is actually in the classroom, the child can see some of the ingredients and what they look like before they're prepared. And you can even have them hold it, touch it, feel it, smell it, and even in a safe manner, cut the food in half so that they can see the inside. And again, really get to see what it looks like before you start preparing the food, because once it comes out in a casserole or once it comes out as some steamed vegetables, it looks a lot different than when it was raw. All right, and then have positive conversations with your kids about the fruits and the vegetables and some of the food prior to it being cooked, and then what it's going to look like afterwards. But this is a really, really cool technique right here, and I've done this many, many times, that it's amazing how when you have a good positive conversation about the food prior to cooking it and let the child hold it, feel it, touch it, smell it, once you do cook it and you serve it on the plate, they're kind of excited about eating it and excited about trying it right there. So that's a good tip right there. Now, of course, you want to make sure that after you do this in the classroom, that you wash the fruit really well, clean it, and it might be that you don't cook that part right there. All right, how the food is helpful for your body and those type of things. So let your kids be produce pickers, all right? And even, of course, if you've got some of these toys in your home center, some of the fake fruits and vegetables and foods, you can compare the toys that you have in your home center or dramatic play center to the actual food and show them the difference right there and get them involved. All right, another really good tip in working with picky eaters is to have your child help prepare the meal. All right, now I love doing cooking projects in the classroom. It's one of my favorite things to do, is good old cooking projects in the classroom. Now, again, right now we're in a pandemic, so probably need to put a pause on the cooking projects in the classroom. But once we get past our pandemic, would love to get started on this once again. We can still do it though right now, all right? You can definitely still do a cooking project where you're gonna have the kids help mix and stir and prepare the food. You're just not gonna serve, all right, what they do. Now, I've done this even not during a pandemic. This is the way I've always kind of done cooking projects, is that I'll bring in ingredients into the classroom, and we'll chop it up and we'll mix it up and we'll stir it and we'll see how it changes and have all the positive conversations. And then you're gonna have the finished product already baked or cooked and ready to serve, all right? It's kind of like those cooking shows that you watch on TV where they put all the ingredients together and they have their conversations, and then they're going to bake it at 450 for 60 minutes, and then they go on commercial break and they come back and it's done. Ta-da! All right, so that's kind of how you're going to do it in the classroom too. You're already going to have the finished product made. What you're doing in the classroom is more for learning and conversation and not what you're actually going to serve. So even though we are in a pandemic right now, you can still have your child help prepare some of the meals just so that they can see the process and have those conversations. Again, this is a really, really good tip for working with those picky eaters and getting them involved in the meal preparation. So helping them add the ingredients, doing the measuring, stirring, those type of things. Another really good tip for working with picky eaters is to offer choices. We talk about choices a lot in our practice with conscious discipline, and a lot of the strategies that we use in our classroom to help build social and emotional development. But choices give empowerment. Would you like to pick up the red blocks first, or would you like to pick up the blue blocks first? Which works best for you, all right? And we can offer choices throughout the entire day. No exception right here for working with our picky eaters. We could always go, Robert, would you like to have broccoli or cauliflower for lunch today? Which works best for you? Now, of course, you're going to have both of these options available for the children, so make sure that you're choosing two choices that your cook is going to be able to serve. But having a little bit of extra stuff available, that is going to give empowerment for the kids. All right. And if you say, Robert, would you like to have broccoli or cauliflower for lunch today? And they go, broccoli. You chose broccoli. Fantastic. We're going to have broccoli for lunch today. Maybe tomorrow we can choose cauliflower. All right. And again, we can add that encouragement right there. All right. Again, I talked about the importance of family-style meal service. Enjoy each other's company while eating the food, all right? And talking about the foods that we're eating, and not just talking about the foods that we're eating and how they're gonna make us strong and healthy, but just what was your favorite part of the morning? Do y'all remember when we were at Circle Time? Let's kind of recap some of the conversation at Circle Time, and just having a casual conversation about the events of the day it's amazing how the kid will just reach over and pick up whatever it is that they're not wanting to eat, and they'll just start eating it because they're not thinking about it. All right. And that's the whole deal, is to get their mind off of whatever they're not wanting to eat, and they're engaged in another conversation, during the mealtime, and they're looking around the table and all of their peers are eating the cauliflower, and they just start eating it themselves, and the next thing they know, they're like, whoa, this is actually pretty good. All right. So again, another benefit of that social and emotional development right there at mealtime. So that's very helpful right there. Make sure that everybody is eating the same thing at the same time. All right. Now, this is where it kind of contradicts what I talked about choices. When you give a choice to help with that empowerment, that is a helpful tip for working with picky eaters. But another really helpful tip is to make sure that everyone is eating the same thing. All right. When you start having, a table full of 8 kids, and all 8 children are eating different things, that can create an issue with the picky eater as well. They may be more interested in what the other person is eating and not so much what is being served to them. All right. So, this is where I've always tried to discourage food from home as much as possible. For those of you that serve and prepare food in your programs, try to discourage food from home, unless there's a food allergy, unless there's a religious preference. But you really want to try to make sure that everyone is eating the same thing and the same variety of foods right there. And then you can talk about the color and the shapes and the textures of the food that's on your plate. That's going to be helpful for you as well. All right. When you are helping that child with their picky eating and you're introducing new foods, start with small portions. All right. Let the kids try small portions of new foods that you enjoy. All right. Give them a small taste and be patient with them. When they develop a taste for more types of food, it's easier to plan a bigger variety of menus. But I was thinking about, when I was preparing for this webinar, I was thinking about 8 or 9 years ago, we completely changed our menus to be a very, very healthy menu with a lot of fresh fruits and fresh vegetables, very little processed foods, and we have a very, very healthy menu. That's part of our unique selling point of our program. Well, I remember there were a lot of families that would sit there and look at our menu and say, strawberry chicken spinach salad. My child's not going to eat that. A spinach salad in a 3-year-old classroom. Well, I bring that up because it's one of the most popular things on our menu. The kids love that strawberry chicken spinach salad. But of course, when we first rolled out this new healthy menu, especially it was the spinach part that was the hardest thing, is you do it in very small portions. All right. But the teacher has to be an active participant and be very positive about the food that you're serving. All right. Offer one new food at a time. You don't want to overwhelm the child with a whole lot of new stuff all at once. All right. So just one new food at a time. Let them start developing the taste for that, the texture for that, and then you can start introducing more foods as you go along. Once again, you have got to be a good, positive role model when you're working with the kids. So as you're eating the chicken strawberry spinach salad, you're being a good role model, and you're talking about, oh, the texture of these strawberries, they're so juicy and sweet, and then you could even, before you take a bite of your strawberry chicken spinach salad, you smell the strawberry. Oh, smell this strawberry. It smells so good. Let's see what it tastes like. And then you're going to be role modeling. And again, the kids want to please you. All right. There you go. I do always encourage that teachers eat with the kids. All right. I think that's one of the benefits of the job. When you work in early education and after school programs, you get, 3 meals a day, basically, breakfast, lunch, and afternoon snack. But yeah, you've got to be a good role model, and for you to sit down and have the meal with them is really going to help with these picky eaters. All right. So throw that into your benefit package right there, that you're going to get to eat, you're going to get a meal while working here. And of course, your cook needs to make sure that they're preparing enough food for the teachers to eat with the children. Now, their portion sizes need to be equivalent to the children's portion sizes. You don't want the kids to have, this much tater tot casserole and then the teacher have a big old, mountain of it. If they want more later on, then y'all can accommodate that, later on. But I would make sure that the portion sizes are equivalent. But I do believe it's very important that the teachers eat with the kids. All right. Whenever you're offering a new food to the children, offer the new food first, all right? Your child is most hungry at the beginning of the meal. So when they're most hungry is when they're most likely to try the new food. So as you're serving the food onto the plate, do the new food first right there. And the other thing, I've had this conversation with parents so many times right here, but you need to offer new foods several times, all right? Kids aren't going to like a new food right away. It takes dozens of tries for children to accept a new food. So, we hear this a lot. Well, my child tried broccoli once, he didn't like it. Well, he needs to try broccoli dozens of times, all right? One time isn't enough to decide whether, he's going to like it or not, especially broccoli, because that's got a really different texture right there. Make food fun. If it's possible, cut the food into different shapes with cookie cutters, depending on what the food is right there. That could be helpful for you. Encourage the kids to invent and prepare fun foods like there. Now, we used to do, ants on a log, where we would get celery and put peanut butter with raisins on it. That's a fun way of getting the children to eat something healthy. Now, of course, peanut butter is one of those things that we kind of stay away from these days, but you could still do the soy nut butter. Or I've kind of changed it to ants on a snowy log, and instead of using peanut butter, using cream cheese and then putting the raisins. But there's thousands and thousands of different ways that you can make the food fun and inventive so that the kids can eat it. Another thing that I like to do with my picky eaters is to ask the children to name the food. If you don't like the word broccoli, let's call it something else. Let's come up with a new name for broccoli, and let the kids come up with a new name for the food that you're trying to get them to eat, all right, in a fun and positive way. Whenever they get to name it, then they're more likely to eat it right there. Now, I've talked about making sure that you're working with your children and using positive words and positive body language when you're working with these picky eaters. So I wanted to go over some phrases that I've heard in the classroom that are helpful and phrases that will hinder healthy eaters. So again, you are the biggest role model, and what you say has a big impact on their eating habits. And we're not just talking about picky eaters right here. We're talking about overall, eating habits that can kind of lead to adults and go on into their adulthood. And even when I was getting ready for this training today, I was sitting here thinking, wow, some of these comments that I have down right here, I still see adults that kind of deal with some of these issues. So how many of you have either said or you've heard someone say, eat that for me? If you don't take one more bite, I'm going to be mad. Now, phrases like these teaches your child to eat for approval and love. This can lead the child to having an unhealthy behavior, unhealthy attitudes, unhealthy beliefs about food and themselves. All right? So instead, use phrases like, this kiwi fruit, it's very sweet like a strawberry. These radishes are very crunchy. Phrases like these help point out the sensory qualities of the food, and they encourage your child to try them. All right, so we don't want to use food as a form of approval. All right, let's focus on the texture and the taste to encourage them to eat it. How many of you have either said or you've heard someone say something like, "Oh, you're such a big girl. You finished all your peas." Or, "Jenny, look at your sister. She ate all of her bananas." Or maybe you've said or you've heard someone say, "You have to take one more bite before you can leave the table." Now, phrases like these teach your child to ignore fullness. It's better for kids to stop eating when they are full or satisfied, rather than when all their food has been eaten. All right. So instead of making these type of comments, let's practice and say, "Is your stomach telling you that you're full? Is your stomach still making that hungry growling noise? Or has your tummy had enough?" Phrases like this is going to help teach your children to recognize when they are full. This can prevent overeating, all right? But sometimes we do force the kid to eat too much just because we're trying to satisfy ourselves and not the child's fullness, all right? How many of you, when you're trying to get a child to eat a new food or an undesired food, you have said or you have heard someone say something like, "See, that wasn't so bad, was it?" All right? Or, "That didn't taste so bad, did it?" This right here implies to your child that he or she was wrong to refuse the food. This can lead to unhealthy attitudes about food and unhealthy attitudes about themselves. All right. So instead, we're going to use phrases like, "Did you like that? Which one was your favorite? Everybody likes different foods, don't they?" So phrases like these make your child feel like they are making good, positive choices. It also will shift the focus towards the taste of the food rather than who was right and who was wrong. All right. Last set of phrases that I wanted to go over with you when we're talking about modeling behavior and using positive words when working with picky eaters is, how many of y'all have said or you've heard someone say, "No dessert until you eat your vegetables," or, "Stop crying and I will give you a cookie"? All right. Offering some foods like desserts in reward for finishing others, like vegetables, makes some foods seem better than others. Getting a good food treat when upset teaches your child to eat to feel better. All right. This can lead to overeating. All right. And that's the one that I was like, oh, I kind of know a lot of adults that are still doing this. They eat to feel better. That turns into a psychological issue for sure. So instead of those types of phrases, let's practice saying, "We can try these vegetables again another time. Next time, would you like to try them raw or would you like to try them cooked?" All right. "I am so sorry you seem sad. Come here and let me give you a hug." So again, reward your child with attention and kind words. Comfort him or her with hugs and talks. Show love by spending time with them and having fun together rather than showing that love with food, all right, and that approval by food. So those are definitely some phrases that I want y'all to think about when you're working with your kids. And some of y'all might be on the guilt train right now, going, I think I've said a couple of those things or something similar to it. I know I definitely have, and we're going to practice being better. All right, we're going to practice using more positive words when working with our picky eaters. So, in conclusion, this is kind of a short webinar today, even though that we had a little bit of internet issues. But I'm just going to follow up again with getting our children on a healthy path to eating good food. So, again, offer a variety of healthy foods to your children. Those of you that are not familiar with the choosemyplate.gov, go to that website, the USDA, the United States Department of Agriculture website. They have lots of wonderful resources for you to help with not just picky eaters, but health and nutrition, physical activities, all things nutrition and health wise you can find on choosemyplate.gov. All right. Pay close attention to the dairy foods, the whole grains, and the vegetables that build healthy habits that will last a lifetime. Be mindful of the sweet drinks and other foods that children are eating and drinking. And even though you're not serving sweet drinks and other types of foods in your program, be mindful of what's being served at home. I always like to ask mom and dad, what did the child eat at home last night, or what did the child eat over the weekend? Because that's really going to help you when you're working with the kid and their eating habits. So, foods like hot dogs and burgers and pizzas and cookies and cakes and candy, we really need to encourage our families that these are only served occasionally, but this should not be part of their weekly diet right there. All right. Focus on the meal and focus on each other. Again, I'm throwing in that social and emotional part of learning into mealtime. When we eat, our body relaxes, and all of the garbage that we keep up in our head that we're dealing with seems to kind of go away during mealtime because we get relaxed and we get comfortable. That's when we have the best conversations. I mean, even wouldn't you agree sitting at home with your family? You have wonderful conversations during mealtime, all right? Same thing in the classroom. Your children are watching you, all right? And your attitude and your body language towards the food is going to be very encouraging or discouraging for your picky eaters, all right? Your interest in trying new foods is going to be a big influence on the kids. And last but not least, when you're working with picky eaters, be patient, all right? Be patient. Remember, it takes dozens of tries for the children to get familiar with the new food. All right. Children enjoy food when eating that food is their own choice. So we go back to the power of choice and the skill of empowerment. Some foods, it's going to take time for them to get familiar with the taste and the texture. That's okay. All right. Be patient with them right there. Encourage the children to serve themselves. This is also going to be helpful. And try to introduce new foods as often as possible. All right. The more new foods that you introduce on your menu, the more likely they're going to get past their picky eating. All right. So again, try to cook together as much as possible. So those cooking projects are very important. Even during the pandemic, you can do a cooking project. You're just not going to serve what you prepare. You're going to have something ready waiting in the background. Eat together, even though during the pandemic we're discouraged from having family style meal service. You can still sit down and space yourself and practice physical distancing and eat together and have those wonderful conversations. Talk not just about the food that you're eating and how it's going to make you strong and healthy, but just talk about the reflections of the day, what you've learned so far today. Talk about what you're going to do this afternoon, but encourage those conversations. The more you talk and the more you conversate, the more comfortable they're going to be, and they're going to try the new foods. And just make mealtime a positive a time of the day that the kids look forward to, not just because they're nourishing their body, but just because of the social interaction that they're getting with each other and the teacher. Mealtime should be happy time. All right. and that's definitely going to help with your picky eaters right there. All right, so I hope this was helpful to everyone today. It was a short and sweet webinar, but again, at the beginning of the school year, I know a lot of you are going to work with children that are picky eaters, work with families that are picky eaters, so I wanted to throw this out here at the beginning to kind of give you some helpful tips. All right, I hope this was helpful, and I will see everybody later on. Y'all have a wonderful rest of your day, and happy Monday.